Did Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs just have one of the greatest playoff runs of all time, and is big credit due for the Chiefs defense? Starting as the 3 seed in the AFC, the Chiefs had 3 tough games to play in this year's playoffs if they wanted a chance at the Super Bowl. They beat 4 of the best teams in the NFL this season on their way to becoming Super Bowl champions. But let's break down to see who the Chiefs really beat in this year's playoffs. First, the wild card round, the Chiefs beat the Miami Dolphins, who had the most yards per game in the NFL this season with 401.3 per game. They also scored the second most points this season, just behind the Dallas Cowboys. Not to mention, this offense scored the second most points in a single game in NFL history earlier on this season. In their wild card matchup with the Chiefs, they were held to just 264 total yards and only 7 points, which is excellent for a team that has scored 29 points per game this season. The Chiefs defense held the Dolphins to a mere 1-12 on third downs the entire game. And sure, maybe the Miami offense just had a bad outing, but their defense isn't a joke either. They held their opponents to the 10th fewest yards per game this season at 318 yards, and the Chiefs surpassed that average by just about 100 yards. But that's just round 1 for the Chiefs. Come divisional round, the Chiefs have a familiar opponent in a matchup against the MVP finalist Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. The Bills offense is almost as high rolling as the Dolphins. They have the 4th most yards per game and the 6th most points per game this season of all the NFL. The Buffalo defense is just as good as their offense, allowing the NFL's 9th lowest yards per game at 309 yards. The Chiefs barely peaked over that allowance, but was able to come out with a win in what has been a playoff rivalry. And now onto the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs must face the season MVP and now 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, who have looked unstoppable this season and finished first in the league standings. The 4th most points per game and the 6th most yards per game for this Baltimore offense. They also led the NFL this season in rushing yards with nearly 160 per game. But the Chiefs defense held the Ravens to just 89 rush yards in the game and only 10 points for a team that has scored 28 per game this season. Not to mention, the Ravens turned the ball over only 19 times this season, which is tied for the 2nd least in the NFL. And the Chiefs defense forced 3 turnovers in their AFC Championship game. And once again, a great offensive team has a remarkable defense. The Ravens allowed the 6th fewest yards per game, and yet the Chiefs were able to play to the standard they had all season long. And lastly, the Super Bowl against the league's 2nd ranked overall team, the San Francisco 49ers, a team that 2 NFL MVP finalists and the Offensive Player of the Year. This offense produced the 3rd most points per game and the 2nd most yards per game, along with the league's fewest turnovers per game, and a defense that allowed the 8th fewest yards per game. Yet through all the terrific players, offenses, and defenses that the Chiefs have played this playoffs, they were still able to come away with yet another Super Bowl win. It's up for your interpretation whether this run was a spurt of excellence from Kansas City or a downfall from their opponents. However, it's less likely that 4 of the league's best teams all played their worst against the Chiefs. Was this one of the greatest playoff runs of all time, or was there some luck to the Kansas City Chiefs winning their 2nd consecutive Super Bowl?